All right, well, welcome again, everyone, to the OneNFP Financials product demonstration today. We're so happy you could join us for a high-level overview of our OneNFP Financials product, which is a cloud-based fund accounting product built specifically for nonprofit organizations and government entities. Today's presentation will be given by Brandon Taylor, who's our president, and I'll introduce him in just a moment. In the meantime, I did want to point out that you do have an opportunity to ask questions during this session. To do so, you should have a questions area in your control panel for GoToMeeting. Simply type the questions there, and our intention is to take all of the questions at the end of today's webcast at the top of the hour. With that, I will go ahead and turn things over to Brandon Taylor, who is the president of OneNFP, and he'll be taking us through the OneNFP Financials overview. Thanks again for everyone joining, and Brandon, take it away.
Okay, thanks, Emily. Hi, everybody. As Emily said, thanks for joining. We have this slated for an hour, so welcome. What we'd like to do, there's just a few slides we'd like to cover off, give you a little bit of background about who we are, and then we're going to spend the rest of the session in the OneNFP Financials overview, and then we'll do a Q&A. And as Emily said, we're going to hold those to the end. So as I go through this, feel free to just put your questions in the chat window. Emily will capture them, and then we'll circle back around and go through those. So let's give you a little bit of background on who we are. Hopefully you've all been out to our website. OneNFP is in business so you can get on with your mission, and the way we illustrate that, this chart does a pretty good job of that, and I'll get a little further in on, we're really focused on the Microsoft, the One Microsoft story. And when we look at technology today, we look at cloud solutions, and for us specifically, we know that Microsoft's donated Office 365 to all 501c3 qualifying nonprofits, which you think is a huge value proposition. So around that, we look at financials, OneNFP Financials, our fundraising product, and business intelligence, which we have as OneNFP BI. Today, obviously, we're just focused on financials, so I'm going to take you a little deeper into that, specifically the fund accounting components of it, and the auditability, all of the normal things that you would expect in a modern cloud-based financial solution for not-for-profits. For those who aren't familiar with the One Microsoft strategy, this is all about simple and accessible. It's all in the cloud. The look, the feel, it's familiar to your staff, and most importantly, it's integrated. So I'll show a little bit of that today with Office 365. We won't actually go into our OneNFP fundraising, but we'll look at our OneNFP business intelligence. But really the beauty about this one strategy is that all of the technology runs on the Microsoft platform, so it's safe, it's secure, it's in the Microsoft cloud, and us as OneNFP don't really necessarily have to worry about the infrastructure and the platform. Microsoft engineers take care of that. We get to focus specifically on nonprofit features and functions in our products. So that's what we're going to look at today. Before we jump right into software, though, we always find it beneficial that we spend time in discussing the account structure, because we think that account structure is really what sets us apart from the competition. Within our solution, we have funds interchangeable with the word grant or other money, basically buckets of money that you need to have self-balancing, handle the interfund automatically, the release from restrictions, all of those financial components. And then we have dimensions. You may have heard of these as segments or categories or classes, but we have 8 global dimensions that allow you to track expenses, report on grant requirements, anything that you need to track. I'll show you a couple that we have in our demo solution as we go over today. And then we have the natural account, which we call the chart of accounts. These are logical entities. I'll explain and actually show that in software so you can see what it means, but this is kind of the crux of the whole solution. So we want to make sure that we call it out as I get into the software. We think it's important that you can understand the power of where you can do filtering and additional analysis right within the software. So let's go ahead and jump right into the software. In order to do that, I'm going to go ahead and drag over. I'm running Microsoft Surface Pro 3 with Windows 10 on it, and this is the latest Microsoft browser, which is Microsoft Edge. So it's, again, you can run all of our solutions in Edge and Internet Explorer, Chrome, Firefox, Safari, and then there's also tablet clients, and I'm actually going to show a tablet client. But all of those are on the on the Apple Store, Google Play, or the Windows Store. I'm also going to show you the Windows Store one today. So this is what you see when you log into our solution. I'll just kind of give you some navigation 101. Down the left, you can see that we have what we call the navigation pane. So with funds, I'm going to spend some time in there. There's the chart of accounts that we saw from the PowerPoint. Traditional vendors, customers, bank accounts, expense, time administration. We'll actually go through an expense example. And today's overview is really to kind of give you a 30,000-foot view into the software. And then if you're interested, we'd be happy to dig deep and go into batch allocations and the allocations and a little more maybe tactical, practical stuff. But we want to give you a sense of what we have today. These are queues. We call these buckets of work. So that stack of paper will grow as you get more invoices. Here's where you can see that if you had donations, these are interactive, so you can click on them. So if you had entered donations in our OneNFP fundraising application, they'll automatically show up here. And then you can click on them. I'll just open that up real quick so you can see what that looks like. So there's a couple donations that we've received. The account structure, again, there's that natural account and fund. We'll go through that. And then you can just post these transactions and they end back up in OneNFP fundraising. Over here we have what we call key performance indicators. You'll hear me refer to these as KPIs. These are basically charts and a graphical representation of your data. So then you can share these with staff. And they're interactive. So you can come here and actually unclick different things and get different views. And as you can see, you can hover over different elements of this, put them back. We expose to, the beauty about these are that you can build these yourself, and they're based on what we call row and column layouts. So, and we'll get to that a little bit when we get into reporting, but the nice thing to take away from that is that you can build, expenses by program. You can see that we have our fund balance, maybe you want a cash balance or cash flow one. You can build different KPIs and expose them to different people. So when they log in, they just get a really quick snapshot of how the organization may be doing. Up here, just like in Office 365, there's a ribbon. So this is where you would do journal entries, payables, there's banking, and you can see that we have lots of reports, obviously focused only on the nonprofit industry. We've produced all the FASB reports out of the box, so statement of activities, your financial position, functional expenses, lots of reports by either dimensions or funds. So here you can see there's a trial balance by fund / grant, so you can run a trial balance by fund. And then we have reports as well as you can do by dimension. Let me go ahead and collapse this. I think what we'll do now is spend a little bit of time around the dimension out of that account structure as we outlined in the PowerPoint. So if we look at funds within this, you can see this is just a list and kind of some 101 things as well as navigation goes again. Whenever you see a column list like this, you can actually do a drop down, sort of ascending, descending. You can filter the list further. You can hide or add columns to your list. Anything that's a blue is a hyperlink, so you can actually drill down. You can see that we actually track budget, encumbrances, actual, embedded videos. We have a YouTube channel. All of our help's online. You can attach files. The other nice thing across the list is you can actually just search by hitting this icon. So you can see that I have this Morrison Foundation. Let's just type MOR. It automatically takes me to that fund, and then I can open it up by clicking on the hyperlink. We have a name, alternate name, fund class. Here you can see that it's important that you can find your own classifications. However, they have to tie to the fund restriction of either unrestricted, temporary, or permanently restricted. And then obviously on the class, you can do reporting, as well as we've added an additional field for type. Over on the left, you can see, before I jump on the left, here on the from and to, that basically gives you the ability to restrict when you can post to this fund / grant. We handle multi-year grants within the system, so this could be 1/1/15 through 12/31/18, or however you want to do that. You can add links to the system as well as notes, unlimited notes. Here you can see that I've attached a couple of agreements to this, and then as well as we have capabilities within the system called extended fields. So you can add your own user-defined fields, categories and fields, and then use those for reporting. So here you can see I've created a couple new fields that didn't exist in the system called report due date, and then I'm tracking the dates that I have to report on the Morrison Foundation here for reporting perspective. To expand on this a little bit, I'm going to also show you here how you can always go home. And then when you do a drop down on the home, you can see that we have advanced budgeting. I won't spend time on that today in this webinar. History, everything you do in our system is auditable, transactional based, so auditors can come in and see all of the transactions that have occurred. And then in administration, I just want to spend some time here in this account structure. So these first three things, this is the natural account, asset, liability, net asset, your revenue and expenses. We try to, when we go through implementations, follow the unified chart of accounts as best as possible with clients. Here's the funds that I just went over. And then here's the dimensions. I want to spend a few minutes on here. Here you can see we have 4 set up. I'm going to focus on 2 of them from a demo perspective. And we have the cost center. Within that, so this list would be empty when you first got our solution, and then through implementation we'd help understand what you need to report by. So today we're going to report by cost center and program. So I've created a new dimension called cost center, and then within it you can see it has 4 active values. So I'll open those up, and you can see the values are code 100, 200, 300, 999, which are either education, arts, or fundraising. And then let's just look at the program one, because it'll be important as we go through transactions and reporting. Here you can see I have another dimension called program. Within it I have 5 values: homework tutoring, literacy classes, youth theater, etc. So if we remember these 2 dimensions, cost center and program, let's go back to the home, and we'll actually now focus on kind of the power on how that dimensionality and account structure applies across the solution. If we look at these, my reports, you can see that we have an expense actual to budget with variance. So let's go ahead and just show this real quick so you can see what this is. So these user-defined reports are made up of rows and columns, and we define a bunch in the solution that come with the system, as well as training and YouTube channels on how you as an organization can build your own row. So what we see our clients typically do is they're doing a lot of the reporting in Excel. They'll take their Excel sheets, they'll build a row layout that models that Excel sheet and a column layout. So it basically replaces the Excel sheet. So you can see that I have revenue and expenses, and I've built columns for actual, year-to-date actual, my budget year-to-date, and then provided a variance and a percent. And I'm actually looking from August 1 through August 30th. I'm going to go ahead and remove this for 1 second. So let's scroll down and look at the data. So what we're looking at is you'll see these additional filters. So there's a fund filter, there's that cost center and program. What I'm looking at right now is revenue and expenses for my entire organization across all my grants or funds, all of my cost centers, and all of my programs. And again, those dimensionalities would be your dimensions across my entire organization for that date range, August 1st through August 30th. So if we look at total office supplies year to date, you can see that we've spent as an organization $77,000, a little over. And if I wanted to just to look to see how much I've spent in Morrison Foundation, I can actually do a drop down on my fund list. Here's the Morrison Foundation. Let's go ahead and pick that. And notice now that my actual changed from 77,000 to 490. So that's how much I've spent in office supplies specifically to that grant. I can further then go further if I want to. Let's say I wanted to look at grant and then a program within that grant, so maybe literacy classes. So you can see now I've only spent $452. I could do across multiple grants. There's a bunch of shortcuts here, so I could say or, F210, which is another grant, and numbers will change again. If I wanted to take a look and forget grant and just understand how much I've spent within the literacy program across my entire organization for that date period, I could just remove this fund filter completely, and now the amount's changed. So for literacy classes and office supplies, we've spent $18,831.47. Notice that it's a hyperlink. So whenever you see a hyperlink, again, in our solution, you can actually drill down on that, and it'll show you every transaction that makes up that $18,000. And then you can further filter if you want. So here you can notice that I have multiple grants showing up. Again, let's just apply a filter to this list for a specific grant. So I could come here, and let's go back to that Morrison Foundation and apply that. And now I'm only looking at office supplies for this specific grant across those periods of time and that program, 1100. Start to show some of that kind of One Microsoft strategy here. I have Office 365 open here. For those using that, it should look familiar. That's all your mail, calendar, OneDrive where you can store files, sites, my Excel online. I've set up our solution in this demo environment that you'll notice there's an open in Excel. I've set it up so when I click on it, it'll take whatever I'm looking at and send it to Office 365 to my Excel online. You could set it up if you weren't using Office 365 and you're using the Microsoft Excel desktop version, it'll automatically send it to the desktop version. But let's go ahead and do that. What this will do is take that filter list and actually send it to Excel. And you'll notice that it's actually opening up SharePoint, Excel Online, and it's dumping it into Excel Online. So here I am in Office 365 Excel Online, and this is actually storing this file now into SharePoint so that other people within our organization actually can access that. So I could build a pivot table on this and do the normal stuff that I do. Another solution that we won't show today that comes from a reporting perspective is Jet Express. That's an Excel add-in that allows you to build very sophisticated, complicated reports in a tool that you're familiar with, Excel. A couple new functions, equal NL, equal NF. And then once you've built that report, rather than have to dump data back and forth into Excel every time you post stuff in your financials, you're able to, in Jet, just say refresh. And it'll automatically go out to your instance in the cloud and bring data into that report and refresh all your worksheets. So if you're interested in that, we'd be happy to show that as well. This just dumped a static snapshot right into Excel. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close that. Let's go back. So that's how the filtering works, and that's system-wide across all of the dimensions that you set up and the fund. You'd be able to drill down and do all the normal things. So if we go back home, the other thing I want to show is basically when you looked at the budget within the system, I want to be able to drill down on that so you can kind of see. So I'm going to go ahead and do a journal entry so you can kind of see what that looks like. In order to get budget in the system, there's varying ways. The most simplistic way is that you have a template that we give you during implementation, you fill it out, and then you're able to go in and go to a Gen Journal. You'll notice that we support multiple transaction types in our solution. So actual, transaction type budget, a provisional, and statistical. Statistical, again, we won't touch on today, but why that's important is employees and staff record time. We can record that time as a statistical entry within our solution, and then we can actually run batch allocations that figure out the percentage that employees have spent in a specific program or a project, how much you want to allocate for rent, all of that normal stuff, and reallocate unpulled expenses back into the correct dimensionality. But if I look at budget, you can see I have that template. A couple things that you can do. So I can get this budget into the system by going to Actions, Excel Import, and I could pick a file that we've given you and you format it, and you'd choose it, hit OK, and it would bring in these transactions. And really it's just posting date, by document date, an account, and then you can see I have post original. But the important part here to see is that I'm doing it across multiple grants within one fund. I've got cost centers and programs, and within this fund I've gone across two different programs for the same fund, different amounts. And then within budgeting, we also facilitate the ability to create multiple budget plans. So if I look at the ellipsis on this, you'll see that I've got fiscal year 2015, that's my original budget. I'm going to go ahead and load a forecast budget, and then it's likely I might do a revised budget. And this actually posts all the way through the general ledger, and that again allows you then to filter and do analysis based on different budget plans. So you might post your original, I'll go ahead and show you what that looks like, and then a revised budget, but you still always want to get back to your original. That's what the budget plan, it somewhat facilitates the same feature function as a dimension, specifically only for budget. So I would go ahead and import this in and post this. Now if we go back to reporting, just to kind of show you how that works, this budget to actual, and it defaults this. I forgot to show that, and I will. You'll notice that we have a budget plan filter here, and here that is. So if I wanted to look at, my forecasted budget, you can see that just disappeared because I haven't posted that. Same thing, I can switch to my revised budget, and I'd be able to see different revised budgets, right? Or specifically just my original budget. So it acts very similar to how this worked with different dimensions and funds. When you apply that different budgeting, you can kind of get different snapshots. Now the one thing I didn't show is, as we go ahead and pick, let's go ahead and remove this budget. Why this is mostly important, because we find that clients distribute a lot of the reports, or people come in and add ad hoc. Say that we have a specific person that's in charge of this grant. I can do a couple things here. I could print this and notice that I'm only looking at revenue expenses across budget actual for that specific grant. And so if I go ahead and print this, it'll do what normal cloud solutions do. It'll create a PDF. We'll give it a second here. It's actually downloading that to my browser. And then I can open this up. Probably open it up here. So here you can see, here's a revenue and expense. I'm doing it only for this specific grant, and it was August 1 through August 30th, revenue and expenses, budget to actual, and then you could send that off. We find it better, rather than create a bunch of paper and send it, is that you actually just memorize this report. So memorize for, you can pick a specific person. I'm going to leave it empty rather than pick somebody, so that anybody that logs into the solution after I memorize this will have access to this report. So I've given it a name for Sally. Now when I close this screen and I go out, you'll notice that that report shows up. So when Sally logs into OneNFP Financials, she's going to automatically see this report and be able to access it, and it's only going to be specific to that Morrison Foundation. And that's probably a good segue into what a staff member such as Sally would see when they log in their solution. This view specifically is mostly for back-end accounting. So they're in this daily. You can see that they're doing bank reconciliations, deposits, financial approvals, maybe entering fixed assets. A staff member would have a limited view. We have multiple dashboards depending on the persona, what we call the persona of the individual using the solution. So let's illustrate that. You could do that through a different browser, through Chrome. I could open up Chrome, log in as a staff member, and I'd get a different view. I think probably the best way to illustrate that is just through the tablet client. So let's go ahead and open up, I've downloaded this app, Dynamics NAV, from the Windows Store. Again, this is in the Apple Store or the Google Play Store. You could run exactly what I'm going to click on an iPad as an example. So I can open up this app, and you'll notice it automatically logged me in. It's told me this is the Sandbox company, the same one that I'm in. And you'll notice that I'm logged in as a staff person. So and again, if I was running an iPad, I could go down this from iTunes, and this is the view I would get. It's the same functions. The thing you'll notice is that this report just showed up. If I would have logged into this before I memorized that report, it wouldn't have showed up. So now Sally can now come in here and run this. Just kind of give you some sense on what a staff person may see. They may be set up to do approvals. Timesheets, I'm going to go ahead and run through an expense sheet so you can see how that works. Here's these key performance indicators that you've specialized per individual, so they can kind of get a graphical snapshot. But it's all touch enabled as well. So I can come here and click on this with my finger, and then I could come here on expense sheets. It'll automatically open those up. I've entered a new one, so let's just touch that. Notice how the columns and the rows are wider, enabled for touch. What I've done here is I've entered in a new expense sheet. OneNFP webinar. I've given it a date. I was the staff person who did it, and I've entered in 3 lines. So I've got an expense sheet for a plane, and you get to enter the expense type. Again, that list would be empty. You'd create your own coding, and then you would tie it to a natural account. So in this case, we have a natural account for, airline tickets, hotel, and meals. I would pick this. I've set quantity 1, cost me $359, and what you'll notice here as you slide it over with your finger is I've coded these to these specific grants, these 2 programs, and it tells you if you have a budget available within the solution. And then you can actually come here and you can import, take a picture of your receipts, scan them in with the scanner, and then import them in to this expense sheet. So here I could say import, I could choose a file, and I have expense sheets right here, and I've just attached my expense sheets as a zipped file to this expense sheet. We also have within the system, you can activate, choose to activate or not, what we call workflow. So you can set up approval rules, and that's all data driven, that when you do that, it'll go through what we call multi-hierarchical, so you can set up any routing that you want. If it's $50, it's got to go to this person or these 3 people. When one of them approve it, it goes to the next person, and you can have as many levels as you want, and you can have different thresholds on where the routing goes. I have a workflow set up, and you'll notice that the status is set to new. So if I come in here now, I've entered in my lines, I've attached my receipts. I'm going to go ahead and submit this expense sheet, and it'll go ahead and process through to find out if there are any rules that are applicable to the coding that's been done on the line. Specifically in the routing that I have is that I have, if anybody tries to post to this grant, F210, and this program, then I need to approve it. So you can see that the lines have changed to approval pending, and this one didn't have, you can see that it was coded to fund F100. I don't have a business rule to process again that I care about on that, so it went ahead approved automatically. So the staff person's entered their line, taken a picture, attached their receipts, they've submitted it, and now a manager's got an email if you want to turn on emails. So let's go ahead and just go back, and I'm back to home, and I go check my reports. I'm going to go ahead and minimize that tablet. We'll go ahead and refresh our financials. And a couple things have happened. I should have pointed them out before, but you'll notice that this used to say 1, it now says 3. I have 3 transaction approvals. So if I click on that, you'll notice that was expense sheet number 5. That was my airline, and this is my hotel. So I can decide to do certain things here. I can actually go review the document right from here. So I can say review document, and I can see here it is. Here's the plane, airline tickets, here's the hotel. I could see the attachments on it. I could verify everything's correct. It's coded to the right dimensionality, account structure. And then when I come in here, I can decide to approve it. Or let's say that I'm on holiday. Another thing you could do is you could come here and say, oh, I'm going to be on holiday, so starting this date to this date, I want somebody else to approve it for me. So you can set that up ahead of time before you go on approval, so they'll actually get the email, and they'll show up. This will show up in their queue to approve. But once you've done it, you can come here and say approved. You can go ahead and give it a note. Webinar, and I'm going to approve this. Give it a note, and this stays with the transaction definitely. We store these in a ledger so auditors can see who approved it, the date, time they approved, all that normal stuff. And the objective here, when we looked at create efficiency, is we see a lot of clients are doing both of these activities, what I've just done as far as creating expense sheets. It's all manual-based paper being emailed back and forth, and the approvals is all manual-based. So we've tried to come up with the solution where ultimately through time you can eliminate and create efficiency in the organization by getting rid of the paper, speeding up the process, making sure the coding's correct, get rid of the quadruple data entry that we see happening. And you can choose on your terms when you activate these. A lot of times clients get core financials in, they get stabilized, they understand how that flow works, and then they just bring expense sheets in without approvals. So they're getting rid of the paper, but they're getting everybody acclimated to the cloud movement of that, and then they turn on approvals. So it's really up to you as an organization when you turn it on. But I've approved both of these. so I can actually process those transactions. And what this will do is run through to find out if there's additional approvals or emails that need to get sent, and it'll send them out. So the next manager up in the chain can approve it. You'll see that this went to a 1. From here, since I'm back in as the typical accounting individual, I can see that I have expense administration. This gives you a visibility into every expense sheet in the entire organization. And you can see that this OneNFP webinar 1, this expense sheet number 5, has been approved. So now I can actually just send it to the journal and post it. So a couple things happen there. A back-end accounting person would typically get the paper, have to rekey it again. There's been no data entry. It's just verification that they've coded it correctly and it's gone through the right approval process, and now I can post it. And in this case, reimburse the employee if that's what we're doing. So that's how kind of expense sheets work. And it's a very similar process to time and administration, which I won't cover today, but we can be happy to go over that again. Okay, I think I'm doing okay on time, but I want to just jump on a couple more things here in financials, and then I'll show you some of the OneNFP BI stuff that we have as well. The other thing that we have, you noticed how we could post budget. Hopefully now you can kind of see how that account structure works. And in my case, in demo, I'm doing fund, cost center, and program. I've done filtering on that. The other thing I want to show is that we also have what we have budgetary control, because we think it's important. We always tell people that we believe nonprofits are in the business to spend money and be accountable for how they spent it. It's just as important to make sure that when you get a grant that you're spending a flat line, not leave a bunch on the table when the grant expires or overspend on it. So we have budgetary control in the system that we built. And I'm going to illustrate that through just opening a normal purchase invoice, and we'll actually do a budget check on it. So here's an invoice I'm buying from Office Supplies RS. This is their invoice number. I've got a couple of lines on here. I'm doing office supplies and telephone stuff. You'll notice I'm hitting this grant, this cost center program for this amount of money. Within the system, we have a check called budget check. I'm going to go ahead and select that. And I know it's going to trigger because we have a business rule set up. And the business rule is actually called budget. And what it does for that combination of account structure that we have on the line, it go ahead and adds up the start amount. So adds up budget related to that combination for this period of time. If I had tolerance set up, so a lot of times clients set up rules where they'll have a tolerance business rule that says when I'm within 20%, trigger the rule. So then we can send informational emails to managers that might be managing specific grant or a program, and you're almost within budget, just as an FYI. Obviously, when you do purchase orders or an encumbrance journal, you can encumber funds. This is what I've spent actually. I may have other purchase invoices in the system with the same account structure on it, so it's going to add that up. So it's start amount, less if I had tolerance, less encumbrance, less actual, less pending, tells me what I have available for that combination of account structure, less what I'm trying to post, tells me what I have available remaining. And I could have multiple rules that get triggered, all of that normal stuff. But this basically, you can set it up so you can do approval emails that go out. So let's say I exceeded budget. When I hit submit, I may have a business rule that says that's fine, I can go over budget, but somebody has to approve it. So the manager will get an email, they have to approve it, and then it'll go approved, then you can post it. Versus you can set up the rule so you can hard stop the rule, meaning that somebody physically has to go into a journal, move budget from this combination to this combination. So that's how budgeting works, and we can spend a lot of time on just that topic. Okay, so the final thing I want to show, hopefully I haven't gone too fast, and again, it's really intended just to kind of show the 30,000 foot. The final thing I want to show is this is kind of day-to-day accounting. You saw the tablet client related to a staff member where they can do different time, expense, approvals, get reporting, all of that stuff, kind of eliminate the back and forth. The other thing that we've built, and we're in process of working with some early adopters on our clients, is Microsoft's released a tool called Power BI. Let me just go back here, refresh the page since it's been sitting there. Now maybe I won't. Let's log back in. So you just go to powerbi.com. This is on Microsoft's cloud. We're actually in process. What this is intended for is to basically look at board members, the executive director, senior leadership of the organization, and we know that every nonprofit's kind of measuring different metrics to figure out how efficiency is, what strategic decisions they need to make as an organization. We're in process. We know that we have some components here within BI that we think are generic across all nonprofits, and then we're building a structure in place that we can pull financial data and fundraising. So what you're looking at here is a graphical representation of all of our fundraising, OneNFP fundraising, and OneNFP financials data. So as an example, you can see that there's a component here for, here's the Morrison Foundation, the Buchanan, so these are those same funds that we just went through. I can actually click on this. You can see the fund grant balance, and we do a couple things here. So we can see the calendar year, and we know a lot of times the fiscal year is different than the calendar year, and then the grant year is different. So here's all of the different funds and the different time periods, and actually this is interactive. So for the Morrison Foundation, I can click on it and see that I've actually started to spend more than I should. I was doing well up until November, December. And then I can expand this to do filtering. So here's those same programs that we just saw. So here I can just look at that literacy classes, and you'll notice that for this calendar year, you can kind of see across grants how I'm doing across literacy classes. And more importantly, a board member could log in and do this. Unlimited users, there's no cost to the user to do this. And then we're looking at fixed fee services to build metrics. So maybe you have an organization that installs wells, and you want to know how many wells you'd be able to install per donor. We'd be able to build a little KPI here so people could graphically see what that looks like. As an illustrative to that, let me give you another example, event total. So in our system, we actually have two events, a gala and a golf event. I'm looking at the golf event. The blue line represents expenses here. So you can see that these are actually being pulled, this data is being pulled out of real time. Every day it gets updated from OneNFP financials. The yellow line is donation data. This is actually being pulled out of OneNFP fundraising. So here you can see I've made $1,515 on our golf event. Down here you can see the charts and be able to drill down on those. These are the people who have given us donations. These are our constituents. So Brady Newton, Gates Foundation, we've gotten different people giving us donations. And this is who we've had to pay. Office down payment, leasing, the vendors probably don't make sense somewhat, but you can see all the vendors that we've paid related to expenses. This data is coming out of OneNFP fundraising. This data is coming out of OneNFP financials. But this kind of is illustrative to what we realize a lot of clients have to go and manipulate, massage a lot of data. We're trying to put a mechanism in place that can pull the data real time, meaning if somebody goes and posts a new expense to a new vendor, the next time a board member logs in and clicks on this event total, the amount will go down and they'll see that there's a new expense and nobody had to do anything. It'll just be real time. So that's the other thing that ties all this together with the one Microsoft strategy. And with that, I think we can go back to here. I think that's all that I planned to show today. Let me go back to the PowerPoint and open it up for Q&A. So Emily, if you wouldn't mind looking at the chats and looking at the questions, see if we can answer some of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Great presentation, Brandon. We do have a couple of questions that have come in, and I'll just remind everyone to, you're muted, so we need you to type your questions into the question box, and we'll leave a few minutes here to answer those. The first one is, can you talk about how much Office 365 costs for nonprofit organizations, or how to go about finding out more information about that?
Sure. So let me just show that. If you're not familiar with that, I had Office 365 open here, and Microsoft, and we can send the link, and it's actually on our website. It'll follow the Microsoft Citizen page, Microsoft.com/citizen, I think is how you get to it. But they've donated It's actually free of charge. The level is E3, so that gives you all of this, excluding social engagement, which is a really neat tool that basically aggregates your Twitter feeds, Facebook, LinkedIn, everything into one kind of consensus thing that might be worthwhile looking at. You'll notice that you get all of this free if you're a 501c3 qualifying organization. And then the nice thing that we've done is if you went to store.office.com and you searched for OneNFP, you'd find two apps, our OneNFP Financials and OneNFP Financials Lite. And if you're an organization who's running Office 365, then it makes it really nice because you'll have staff members in here daily. They're checking their email, they're looking at calendars, they might store files on SharePoint. They can come in here and click on OneNFP Financials, enter their time, expense, get the reports the exact same way that you just saw it in the tablet, as well as being able to do their approvals. So I think that was a long-winded way of answering that it's free for qualifying nonprofit organizations.
No, that's great. And we did have a question, is Office 365 a requirement for one to use OneNFP?
No, we've all of these are mutually exclusive, meaning that we have clients that are just running financials. We actually have clients who are running our financials and Google Docs with Gmail. So there's no requirement or dependency on Office 365, Power BI, or OneNFP fundraising. You could start with financials, ultimately move to Office 365, or go financials, move to fundraising, start with fundraising. It doesn't really matter where you start. There is a dependency for our OneNFP BI. You have to have financials data and or fundraising because that's where we pull the data in, but there's no dependency on Office 365. It'll run with the desktop versions of Excel just
great.
fine.
Okay. We had another question, Brandon. Does OneNFP include a timesheet tool?
We do. If you look at, it's always easier just to show it. So let me open up the tablet client again. You'll notice that we have timesheets. Let's just go ahead and look at this. So I have a staff member on August 24th. I've gone ahead and entered in, work in program B. I've given it regular time. I could go ahead and edit this. This is probably even better. I've entered regular time, and you'll notice that you get to, again, enter your time types. So I've got regular. You just come through and do data entry. So 8 hours. I spent 4 hours on Wednesday. As you scroll and move over, it's a little more difficult with the mouse. I want to undo this. You'll notice that we have fund, cost center, the same dimensionality in all of these. And then it tracks the time that you've spent with the week total, and then you're able to actually submit it. And again, there's that approval thing that you saw before. What's different about time versus like an expense sheet is once you submit the timesheet, we actually can post that as statistical entries and use it within the financial system to, as I mentioned earlier, to read unpooled expenses and actually allocate them according to the program, whatever. And I say program, it can be, that's our dimension, right, that we have in the demo data. It can be whatever dimension you need to allocate that out to. And we have blog postings on that where we do a salary example of unpooled salary and I think FICA tax withholding. And then we go ahead and allocate that unpooled expense across different programs. But you get that with OneNFP financials as well, as timesheets.
Terrific. The question here is,
Questions?
Yeah, the question is, does OneNFP meet reporting requirements for federal grants?
We do. We have clients that do, that have federal grants. So a lot of times they'll build those in user-defined reports, what you saw here. Let's go back to financials. So they'll build a user-defined reports. The important answer to that question is the underlying structure of the system is true fund accounting, right? So funds and the dimensionality within that account structure pretty much support any type. Now, how you do the formatting of those reports is typically done through user-defined reports, as well as we have the JET report, or the JET report builder that I haven't shown today to help facilitate that special formatting requirement.
Okay. And going back to the timesheets, Brandon, are you able to record time by project or grant?
So let's open that up again. So I probably went through that too fast. So you'll notice that on this specific amount of time, this 8 hours, I have a cost center, right? So that would be project in your case. Sounds like you have a dimension called project. So forget cost center program. You'd probably have a thing here called project code. And then obviously we do all of our time by fund. So again, it's that account structure. So you get natural account, a fund, and 8 dimensions that you can define any way that you need to capture at whatever level you want to. Hope
Great.
that helped.
Yeah, it looks like that answered the question. Thank you. Another question here, where can you find pricing for the OneNFP tools?
So we're very transparent on our pricing. If you go to onenfp.com, there's on each product sheet at the bottom of them our pricing, as well as there's specific pricing page online. We do month to month. There's two user types, a full user, which is typically what you'll see on the accounting, and then for staff members, you'll typically see a limited user that gives them the ability to do approvals, timesheets, expense, and 100% read access in the system. And then we do fixed fee implementations.
Great. It looks like we're caught up on questions for now, Brandon. If you want to just go to that last slide, we can just cover off a couple other items and allow additional questions to come in. We did want to let you know we have a similar presentation next week for the OneNFP fundraising product. If you'd like to register for that, that is at the bottom of our homepage under events. And then, of course, if you have any questions or you're interested in learning more, my name, which I think I neglected to mention at the beginning of the webcast, is Emily, and I'm the Sales and Marketing Manager for OneNFP. My contact information is on your screen here, and I apologize, that phone number should be 720-316-2595 if you need to reach me. You'll also receive a recording of today's webcast automatically via email. And with that, Brandon, I think that we have addressed all the questions. I haven't seen any additional questions come in. We will stay on the line for another minute or two and see what might come in. But otherwise, thank you so much for attending, and we look forward to following up with you after the webcast.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Oh, and Brandon, we did get another question.
Yep.
How easy or difficult is it to import data from another accounting tool into this program?
So when you sign up for us, during the kickoff process, we give you a bunch of Excel templates and then in specific formats. So as long as you can get the data out of the other accounting system into these formats, we're able to import. We have clients that have imported like 10 years worth of data. The other option is if you are running QuickBooks Online or QuickBooks, we've partnered with a firm that we take you through a wizard process. If you look at, Emily can send that out if you're interested, but basically it's a 3-step process. You give us the link to wherever your data is, you go away, we take a couple weeks, we load up your data into OneNFP financials, and we come back and we start the process. So it's a pretty streamlined process. We have that down to about 2 weeks. So if that's a system that you use, we can help with that as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Brandon. It looks like we're all caught up here, so we will give you all 10 minutes back in your afternoon. Thanks, Brandon, for a terrific presentation, and thanks to all of you for attending today's webcast.
Thank you. Talk later.